Nikki visits her old friend Dorothy. Dorothy married the rich old Miles Center, but she's found herself in love with his younger brother David. I've noticed love triangles tend to be popular in murder mysteries. We had one in the previous. We actually had two of them in the previous story. Huh. Well, they're popular in murder mysteries because no matter who dies, there's automatically two different suspects with a good motive.
Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review.
Someone pushes a gargoyle off the roof, which almost kills Miles. Nikki is so terrified, she volunteers Ellery to solve the mystery. Ellery's pretty angry when he finds out because he is rushing to meet a book deadline. I always find it hilarious when Ellery is writing his own stories. Miles is pretty sure that Dorothy and David are trying to kill him. He asks Ellery to come examine the crime scene at midnight. Mr. Hart, the secretary, lets them into the mansion. They hear a gunshot upstairs and rush to find Miles covered with blood. I'm told this scene was pretty graphic at the time it was written. I think they got away with it because Miles isn't really dead. He's just wounded. As Ellery comments, head wounds tend to look worse than they really are. Ellery and Hart try to run after the killer. Ellery finds Dr. Grand, who's asleep next door, and he finds a boathouse with Dorothy hiding inside. She confesses she's the killer. The police arrive. Inspector Queen quickly proves Dorothy is lying. She lies twice, once about the size of the gun, and once about whether or not it's the type of gun that leaves bullet casings. Hart interrupts and says he's the killer, but Ellery quickly disproves that because Hart was with them when the gunshot was heard. I kinda liked how two different people give false confessions back to back. Now I want to see a story which is a series of fake confessions getting disproven. There's a somewhat odd scene where Nikki goes out into the garden, Ellery grabs her hand, and she thinks he's trying to romance her. Are they romantically involved? Ellery points out it's 3 a.m. in the middle of a terrible heat wave, and yet there is smoke coming out of David's chimney. I'm kind of surprised that the police searched the mansion for 3 hours, but nobody looked inside David's art studio. Ellery searches the fireplace. It has a half-burnt glove, which is covered with gunpowder. There are also confetti scraps. It's lucky for Ellery that the culprit did such a bad job of burning all the evidence. He's left to assume the culprit just threw the evidence towards the fire without sticking around to see if the evidence actually landed in the fire. Ellery has the mystery solved at this point, but he puts his explanation on hold for 8 hours so a police diver can arrive and find some evidence which is hidden at the bottom of a nearby river. That evidence being the murder weapon and David's corpse. By this point, most readers have probably forgotten David was supposed to be gone for the holiday. Ellery says the only holiday this month is the 4th of July. This deduction makes sense, but at the same time, this would never happen in real life. Everyone would know today is the 4th of July. Ellery wouldn't need to deduce it. The 4th of July is usually celebrated with fireworks, which explains the confetti that the culprit tried to destroy. Ellery concludes the gunshot they heard was actually the firework. The culprit used a firework to trick everybody into thinking the murder occurred at a later time. The only one who benefited from this deception was Hart, because it gave him an alibi, therefore he's the culprit. The end. Post-story follow-up. I forgot to mention, this story is called The Fallen Angel because the gargoyle that was pushed off the roof is called an angel by the victim. An angel of death, maybe. This was an okay story. It could have benefited from another draft, but it was certainly good enough for print. This is the second story in the collection where the mystery solution ties into the holiday, but the date is kept a secret from the reader, so it can be a surprise. As I said, it was kind of silly. Inspector Queen complains about being forced to work outside his normal area. In real life, he would complain about being forced to work on a holiday, or being forced to work after midnight. Both of those complaints seem much more natural than his complaint that, ugh, you're forcing me to travel to a slightly different part of New York City? What is this? It occurs to me that we did not get an explanation for what Dorothy was doing in a random boathouse at midnight. Overall, I like the story enough. I give Ellery Queen, The Adventure of the Fallen Angel, a thumbs up.